Rain poured over the neon lights of District 9 as Kaleb walked through the narrow street, holding a sealed box in his arms. Inside was something he had never expected to buy in his lifetime, a living creature from the alien refugee market. It was supposed to be a harmless comfort pet, sold cheap because her species had gone extinct after the last border war. That's what the vendor had claimed at least. Kaleb lived alone. After the collapse, most people did. Cities had turned into silos broken into pieces, guarded by drones and filled with whispers of what Earth used to be. He had no family, no partner, and most nights, silence was the only thing that greeted him when he came home. Tonight was different. The moment he opened the box, he froze. What looked back at him wasn't a small alien pet or even a bioengineered animal. It was a young female with glowing blue skin, feline features, and bright golden eyes. She blinked twice and then bowed her head without saying a word. She didn't seem scared. That was the strangest part. She sat on the floor, calm, watching him with curiosity, tail flicking behind her. Kaleb stumbled back and looked again at the box's receipt. Pet Class B, companion use only, nonverbal. It didn't mention she would look so human-like. It didn't mention anything about intelligence. "Can you understand me?" Kaleb asked quietly. The girl tilted her head. Then, slowly, she nodded. She wasn't mute. She was pretending. He ran a hand through his wet hair. Had he just bought a person? Was this some black market trick? Selling off living beings as pets? He tried to speak again, but the girl stood and walked toward him on silent feet. She crouched in front of him, placed her hands on her knees, and purred softly. "I name," she said, her voice low and unsure. "Sira? Yours?" That single word broke something inside him. She wasn't just alive, she was learning, adapting. And now calling him yours? She didn't know what she'd been sold for. She didn't even know what she was to him. Kaleb didn't sleep that night. He made a report to the local AI office, but it bounced back. The pet market vendor had vanished, no legal records. No tracking chips in Sira. She wasn't even listed in the registry of known species anymore. She was a ghost in a world that had no space left for her. Over the next few days, Sira stayed by his side. She learned words fast. She followed him around the apartment, copying his gestures, mimicking his voice, even trying to cook. Every time he sat, she sat beside him. Every time he sighed, she touched his shoulder gently, her eyes glowing in the dark. Kaleb didn't know what to do. She didn't act like a pet. She didn't act like a stranger either. She treated him like something important. Like she belonged to him, but also like he belonged to her. One evening, she curled up beside him on the couch. The city lights painted her skin in glowing pinks and blues. She looked up and whispered, "Husband, is that the right word?" He blinked, shocked. "No, I mean, that's not what this is." She tilted her head. "You care. You feed, you protect, you listen. My people call that husband. I choose that." Kaleb didn't speak. He couldn't. The room felt suddenly too small. He hadn't touched another soul in 5 years. Now this girl from the stars, bought by accident, was calling him her mate. But outside, the war that had scattered her people wasn't finished. Reports of rogue fleets and silent orbital weapons began to rise again. Earth Command dismissed them, but Kaleb watched the alerts stacking on his terminal. Something was building. Something big, and Sira felt it too. She grew more alert. She stopped smiling as much. Her ears twitched at night. Her golden eyes scanned the skyline as if searching for something she hoped would never arrive. She wasn't just a girl. She was a survivor of a war Earth never understood. And now she was in his home, calling him husband. As a second war crept closer to his city's walls, Kaleb didn't know it yet, but he hadn't rescued a pet. He had invited the last daughter of an alien royal line into his life. Asterisk, the morning after she called him husband, Kaleb stared out the window for a long time. Sira sat on the floor nearby, her tail wrapped neatly around her legs. She didn't speak unless he did. She only watched with those golden eyes, waiting for his next word like it was her mission. He wasn't sure what bothered him more, that she thought they were married, or that some part of him didn't hate the idea. He made breakfast in silence. She followed him, tail flicking, her hands brushing over the cabinets like she was memorizing the kitchen. When he handed her a mug of hot tea, she took it carefully and bowed slightly before sipping. "Husband makes warm things," she said. Kaleb shook his head. "Don't call me that. It's not what I am, not yet." "Not yet," she repeated softly. Then she smiled. Later that day, Kaleb tried to figure out what she really was. He scanned her with his old medical tablet, hoping it would match her species. No records, no DNA matches, no archive data. It labeled her unidentified genetic. Origin hybrid class possible. That told him nothing. She sat still through the scan, never flinching. "I am real," she said. "Even if no machine says so." He sighed. "I know you're real. That's what scares me." The tablet beeped again. Unknown language detected. Audio log found. Kaleb opened it. What played was a desperate message in a language he didn't recognize, filled with static and sorrow. Sira stood suddenly. Her ears went stiff. Her voice trembled. "That is home. That is last call. Before ships burned. Before fire took my sky." Her body shook slightly. Kaleb turned off the tablet. He hadn't seen her cry before, but now her eyes shimmered with moisture. She blinked quickly and wiped it away with the back of her hand. "I am the last," she whispered. That night, the sky over Earth changed. A strange light shimmered beyond. The moon. Earth Command claimed it was just a satellite malfunction. Kaleb didn't believe them. Sira watched the light and said nothing. But her tail didn't stop twitching until morning. Kaleb spent hours digging into old archives. Forgotten conflicts, star migrations, closed system wars. He finally found a symbol that looked familiar etched on the inside of the crate Sira came in. It belonged to a civilization marked extinct. The Kithari Empire. Lost in the border fire 20 years ago, but one of their ships had made it near Earth space, smuggled, damaged, then gone. No survivors, no records, just rumors. He looked over at Sira. She was that survivor. The one they never found. She didn't speak of it again. But when Kaleb set a new blanket on the couch, she brought it back and curled next to his bed instead. He asked why. She said, "If danger comes, I will not be far. I promise to guard my chosen." "I didn't choose you," he said weakly. "You did. When you opened the box. When you didn't send me away. When you gave me tea." He didn't answer. He just stared at her until she closed her glowing eyes and slept beside his bed like a sentinel. The next day, a government patrol visited Kaleb's building. They questioned residents about strange sounds, lights, or unknown life forms. Kaleb. Lead. He said he lived alone. He said he hadn't seen anything unusual. When he closed the door, Sira came out of the storage vent she'd been hiding in. Her body was covered in dust and her breath was tight. But she smiled like she'd done something right. "They didn't take me. Husband is good at hiding." Kaleb looked down at her. "You're not a pet. You're not mine. Why stay?" She looked up with those bright golden eyes. "Because I am yours. Not because of a cage or market. Because of how you see me." Kaleb wanted to deny it. He wanted to say she was wrong. But she wasn't. He had bought her expecting silence. What he received was loyalty. He had expected to feed a creature. Instead, he found someone willing to protect him. And now, with a second war flickering on the edges of space, she was the only one who knew what was coming. Siri stood at the window that night and whispered something in her language. Then she turned and said, "Soon they will return for me. Not to rescue, to silence. Kaleb stood beside her. He didn't touch her. He didn't stop her. But he said 4 words he didn't expect. Then we fight back. Sira didn't. Blink. She reached out and touched his chest gently with her claws. Yes, husband, she said with a calm smile. The morning was too quiet. Even the city drones made less noise than usual. Kaleb sat on the edge of his bed, watching the warning flashes from the local net tower blink red. No news was being shared. Just silent signals and blocked frequencies. Sira was already awake. She had been awake all night, sitting near the window, her body still, her tail wrapped tight around her legs. She hadn't spoken a word since their conversation the night before. Kaleb stood beside her. What are you hearing? Her ears twitched once. A hum. Old code. Enemy code. Kaleb didn't understand alien war signals, but he knew enough to trust her. She had survived a war most humans never even read about. If she said someone was coming, then someone was coming. He opened his communication console, typing rapidly. He tried to send an alert to one of the underground truth networks, but the signal refused to leave the city grid. He looked at Sira. Again, can you trace them? Sira's eyes narrowed. She knelt down and placed her hand flat on the metal floor. Her claws sparked faintly as she whispered something under her breath. Kaleb had seen her do this before. She was listening through vibrations, like her people once did in their tree world cities. After a minute, she stood up slowly. They landed, not far, maybe 2 streets away. They are not in a rush. They are searching for you. No. Searching for me with silence. Means they want to erase, not recover. Kaleb paced across the room. He didn't own weapons. He didn't believe in fighting. But now he was sheltering an alien girl marked for death by her own kind. We need to get you out. Sira shook her head. They'll follow. Until they're sure I'm gone. Then we distract them. She tilted her head. You want to help me? He looked at her, serious now. No, I want to protect my wife. Sira blinked twice. She didn't smile. She just placed one clawed hand over his chest and nodded gently. They left through the back corridor, climbing through service pipes and broken stairwells. Kaleb knew the city's lower guts well. He'd spent years wandering these places, looking for scraps and peace. As they moved deeper, Sira pressed her hands against walls, reading sound and signal. At one point, she stopped. They are splitting. One group above us, one ahead. Kaleb frowned. How many? 3, maybe 4. Trained. Quiet. They had no weapons, but Sira didn't seem worried. She whispered something, and her claws extended slightly. I was trained to be more than a wife, she said softly. Kaleb led them through a maintenance hatch and into a broken subway. Tunnel. They walked carefully. The tunnel echoed, but Sira moved like a shadow, light on her feet and always listening. Suddenly, a voice echoed from ahead. Human male, stop. You are harboring an unauthorized entity. Surrender now. Kaleb stopped. Sira grabbed his arm and pulled him behind a pillar. Don't talk. They are not asking. They are marking. She peeked around the corner, then nodded once. 1 on roof. 2 on ground. Kaleb whispered. We can't fight them. Sira's eyes glowed faintly. Then we end the game before they begin. She stepped forward into the open space, her arms spread. You seek me. I offer myself. Release the human. The lead soldier lowered his weapon slightly. You are Sira of the royal line? She nodded. I am the last. Then you will come. Sira smiled. No. The ground beneath the soldiers pulsed. Kaleb didn't know how, but she had set something off. Pipes burst, releasing blasts of steam. The soldiers shouted, blinded. Sira leapt forward with speed no human could match. In seconds, the soldiers were down. She grabbed Kaleb's hand. We run now. They climbed back up through the sewer path and into an old apartment complex. Kaleb was shaking. You fought them. She turned to him. You protected me. That makes you mine. That makes me yours. He couldn't argue. Not after what he'd seen. They reached a rooftop as night fell. The sky was darker than usual. The strange light beyond the clouds was growing. Sira stared at it for a long time. They will come again, in greater number. That was only the first call. Kaleb looked out over the city. Then we make the second call. She raised her eyebrow. To who? To everyone who has someone they love enough to fight for. Sira touched his hand. Then we start something bigger than us, she said. The rooftop felt like the only place untouched by war. But even here, the shadows of what was coming stretched longer every hour. Sira stood barefoot on the ledge, her arms crossed, golden eyes fixed on the horizon. She didn't speak for a long time. Kaleb paced behind her, holding a small toolkit. He was trying to reactivate an old signal booster. If they were going to reach someone outside the city walls, they needed to push past the government's jamming nets. I can't get this to sync with modern comms, he muttered. Ira didn't turn. Then try older channels. Use what? They forgot. He paused, then nodded. She was right. The older systems had been abandoned, not erased. That meant they might still work. Minutes later, static burst from the unit. Kaleb adjusted the dial and tapped the metal casing. A low hum began to pulse, faint but steady. Signal open, he whispered. Range limited. But I think I can piggyback on the water tower line. Sira turned now. Good, we need allies. Earth has many people. Not all will stay silent. Kaleb began sending out a simple coded message. Just a location ping and one phrase. Not alone anymore. He hoped someone would hear it. That night, they camped inside a broken greenhouse atop the same building. The stars above looked dimmer than usual. Too much interference. Or maybe just too much tension in the air. Sira sat with her knees pulled close, watching the glass above. My people believed the stars watched us. We told our story so they would remember who we were. Kaleb nodded slowly. And now? She looked at him. Now I speak my story to you. He didn't know how to answer that, so he just passed her a canteen and sat beside her. In the early hours of morning, the old signal unit beeped. Kaleb scrambled to check it. A reply had arrived. Coordinates, short and direct. Just 5 words. Safe point. Bring the girl. Sira read the message over his shoulder. Her expression darkened. It is not from humans. Kaleb blinked. Then who? Another of my kind. Or what's left? She took a breath. We go. But we go careful. By mid-morning, they were moving again. The city was changing. Patrols had increased. Drones circled higher. Something big was shifting in the power grids. Kaleb knew a lockdown was coming. They moved through old cargo tunnels beneath the rail lines. Sira stayed close, ears twitching, always listening. When they emerged near the ruins of the West Transit Hub, Kaleb spotted movement. 3 figures stood near the old fountain. 2 wore cloaks. One had no covering at all. His skin was pale silver, eyes glowing like melted glass. Sira walked ahead slowly. Kaleb stayed a few steps behind, heart pounding. The lead figure stepped forward. Sira, bloodline confirmed, you live. She nodded once. I live, and I carry memory. We were told you were dead. I chose not to be. The pale alien tilted his head. You travel with human? I do. He is my shield. Kaleb didn't speak. He didn't move. The air between them felt like it could break at any moment. The other figure removed her hood. A female with violet eyes and a scar down her cheek. She bowed slightly. We are what remains. A dozen ships. Fewer than 200 survivors. Sira's eyes flickered. Then we rebuild. But not alone. The silver-skinned male frowned. You trust this species? I trust this one, she said. pointing to Kaleb. He offered no collar, no cage, only kindness. That seemed to confuse the others. The male nodded slowly. Then we listen. They led them into an old bunker, hidden beneath the fountain plaza. Inside were signs of life, maps, lights, machines, children. Kaleb saw them all and felt a strange wave of hope. He whispered, "You're not alone after all." Sierra looked at him. "No, and neither are you." They stayed the night in the bunker. Plans were made, voices argued. But through it all, one thing became clear. Sierra was no longer just a lost girl. She was their leader. Kaleb watched as others bowed to her. She didn't boast. She didn't command loudly. She just listened. Then gave orders like someone who had carried this way her whole life. Later, she returned to Kaleb. She sat beside him and touched his hand. "I chose you before I remembered who I was." Kaleb looked at her. "And you're still choosing me?" Her grip tightened slightly. "Always," she said. The bunker came alive before sunrise. Survivors of the Ki-Thari moved swiftly through the halls, preparing gear and marking maps. Kaleb stood to one side, overwhelmed by how quickly everything had changed. A few days ago, he lived alone in silence. Now he was surrounded by aliens planning for war. Sierra stood at the center of the room, speaking in a calm voice. She gave orders without raising her tone. Even though she was the youngest among them, no one questioned her. She carried the weight of lost royalty, and they followed her without hesitation. Kaleb approached one of the screens. It showed satellite feeds around Earth's orbit. Multiple unknown ships had appeared, slowly creeping closer from the dark side of the moon. They weren't broadcasting identification. They didn't respond to calls. They didn't need to. "They are scouts," Sierra said, stepping beside him. "The first wave. They search for me. And when they find me, they burn everything." He glanced at her. "We can't let that happen." "We won't," she replied. An older Ki-Thari female with silver braids approached. "The human speaks well, but he must be protected. He is not trained." Sierra's eyes narrowed. "He is more than trained. He chose to stand when running. Was safer." Kaleb didn't speak. He just listened. He didn't care about honor. He only wanted to make sure she lived. A plan was formed. The bunker had an old signal tower buried below its lowest floor. If reactivated, it could send a pulse, strong enough to warn Earth's deep colonies. If Earth fell, others still had time to prepare. But the tower was broken. It needed repairs only human hands could manage. Kaleb volunteered. "I used to work power lines before the fall. I know how to handle rewiring." Sierra looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "Then you go. I will guard the path." They descended into the lower levels. Dust and rust clung to every surface. The air smelled stale. Lights flickered weakly overhead. The walls groaned like they remembered pain. Kaleb crawled through tight shafts, locating power conduits and clearing melted joints. Sierra followed behind, watching their rear. She moved like a hunter, claws ready, ears twitching at every sound. "You trust these others?" Kaleb asked as he tightened a bolt. "I trust their pain," she replied. "It's the same as mine." Loud crack echoed from the tunnel entrance. Sierra turned sharply. They found the outer shell. "Time is gone." Kaleb worked faster. Sparks flew, metal clicked. Lights flickered again, this time brighter. The system was waking. "Just a few seconds more," he whispered. The walls shook. A blast hit the floor above. Dust rained down. Sierra stood between him and the hall, her body low, claws extended. She didn't flinch as another explosion echoed through the corridor. A figure dropped from the ceiling vent. Not a drone. A living soldier. Tall, armored, its face covered by a glowing mask. It raised a weapon. Sierra leapt first. She moved. faster than Kaleb could see. Her claws slashed the weapon aside. The enemy tried to strike back, but she ducked, spun, and knocked it off balance. Her movements were brutal but beautiful. She struck the soldier's throat, then its chest. It collapsed without a sound. Kaleb finished the last connection. "Done, it's live." Sira grabbed his hand. "We move, now." They ran through side tunnels, climbing up as more impacts rattled the structure. Alarms began to wail. Somewhere above, voices shouted in alien code. The war wasn't coming. It had already arrived. They burst into the main hall. Survivors were grabbing weapons, lifting children, shouting coordinates. A message had already gone out. Ships were launching. Some to flee, some to fight. Kaleb caught his breath. "How long do we have?" Sira looked at the ceiling as another tremor shook dust loose. "An hour, maybe less." She turned to the others. "Split into 3. Group 1 to the lower tunnels. Group 2 to the river. Group 3 follows me." Kaleb stood beside her. "Which group am I in?" "You're with me," she said. He followed her through the southern exit. Explosions rumbled behind them. Flames danced in the sky. As they reached the open street, Kaleb saw the alien ships hovering low, their shadows covering entire blocks. Sira didn't pause. She pointed ahead. "We move to the signal beacon tower. It's old but strong. If we can hold it, Earth Command will see." Kaleb ran beside her, heart pounding. "And if we can't?" "Then we fall together," she answered. The tower stood like a dying tree in the middle of the ruined city. Rust covered its metal skin, and vines had wrapped themselves around its lower supports. But the top still reached into the sky, tall enough to break the jamming clouds. Kaleb and Sira approached it from the south, running low through the wreckage. Behind them, distant blasts marked where the enemy had struck the bunker. They didn't look back. They couldn't afford to. The tower gate was jammed. Kaleb dropped to his knees, pulling out his tools. "The panel's fried. I'll need a minute." Sira took position near the entrance. Her eyes scanned the sky. "We do not have a minute." Kaleb's hands worked fast. His fingers shook, but his focus held. Sparks flew as he bypassed the rusted circuit board. The lock hissed open. The gate creaked, then groaned upward. They slipped inside. The tower interior was hollow and cold. Metal stairs coiled upward like a spiral spine. Each step echoed like a heartbeat. Kaleb started climbing first. Sira followed, her claws gripping the rails as they ascended. They reached the top floor in under 5 minutes. The control panel was covered in dust. Kaleb wiped it clean and ran diagnostics. The antenna was still intact. Power was flowing. The system just needed to be activated. He pressed the ignition key. Lights flared across the panel. "It's working. We're sending a pulse straight through the clouds." Sira moved to the window. She saw ships circling in the distance. "They see us now. They will come." Kaleb nodded. "Then we hold them back long enough for the signal to reach someone." The building shook. A bolt of plasma struck the lower supports. Dust and metal rained from the ceiling. Kaleb secured the panel with tape and wiring. "We can't lose this now." Sira crouched by the door. She laid small charges from her belt, then looked at Kaleb. "If they breach, I detonate. You stay near the panel." "I'm not leaving you alone," he said firmly. "You are not. You are guarding what I guard." They didn't argue again. The tower was quiet for a moment. Then came the hum. A sound not made by engines, but by energy moving through the air. The enemy was coming fast. 3 figures landed on the balcony. They moved like shadows, cloaked in armor with glowing weapons. The first stepped forward and raised a blade toward Sira. She stepped into the light and spoke in their tongue. "This is not your throne. This is not your hunt." The enemy said nothing. They charged as one. Sira met them with speed and fury. Her claws slashed, Her tail whipped. Her body danced through danger. Kaleb watched in awe as she held the doorway alone. One slipped past. Kaleb caught the movement and grabbed a broken metal rod. He swung hard, catching the soldier in the side. The figure fell, stunned. Kaleb kicked the weapon away and stood over it. Sira knocked down the last enemy, her body trembling from effort. "We must seal the door." Kaleb dragged a metal cabinet across the entrance. Sira helped, her hands shaking. The two pressed against it as more impacts hit the lower walls. "They will keep coming," Kaleb said. "Let them," Sira answered. The tower beeped. Kaleb checked the signal panel. Transmission sent. Confirmed relay across 3 colonies. They got it. Sira leaned against him. Her voice was soft now. Then it was worth it. Footsteps echoed below. Dozens, maybe more. Kaleb looked around. "We won't hold this much longer." Sira turned to him. "Then we do one more thing." She pulled a small device from her pocket. "Emergency scatter beacon. We'll mark our position and release a flare to the nearest ships." "Friendly ships? Anyone who hears it." Kaleb looked into her eyes. "We might be calling in death." "Or hope," she said. He nodded. "Do it." She activated the beacon. A bright column of light shot into the sky, breaking through the clouds. It pulsed in rhythmic waves, a code in her people's ancient language. Outside, the sky changed. Not with fire, with light. Another ship arrived, larger than the rest. It bore no flag. It bore no sound. But its presence silenced everything. Sira smiled. "That ship knows me." Kaleb held her hand. "They answered," she said. The sky outside the tower shimmered with violet light as the new ship hovered into view. It didn't roar or strike. It simply cast a silence over the battlefield below. The enemy stopped firing. The air stilled. Even the wind seemed to pause. Kaleb looked at the display panel. The beacon continued pulsing, its signal bouncing across orbital lines. "Who are they?" he asked without looking up. Sira stepped closer to the glass, her golden eyes wide. They were the Royal Protectors. "A ship that only responds to one bloodline. Mine." Kaleb blinked. "I thought you were the last." "I was, but something survived that I did not know about." The tower trembled slightly, but this time from a softer impact. A blue light blinked from the outer comms panel. A connection request. Kaleb opened it. A female voice came through, deep and commanding. "Identify Royal Present." Sira leaned toward the console. "This is Sira of the Kiathari, daughter of Ralon. Survivor of the border fire. Guardian of the old." "Name," the voice replied after a pause. Royal voice confirmed. "Lower defenses, we are here to extract." Kaleb turned to her. "They're here for you," Sira nodded. "But I do not go alone." Outside, the enemy forces were still frozen. Their ships backed away slowly, unsure whether to attack or retreat. The glowing ship above made no threats. It didn't have to. Its presence alone shifted the entire balance. A landing pod dropped from the royal ship. It hovered just outside the tower platform. Sira stepped toward it, then paused. "You are coming," she said to Kaleb without asking. "I don't belong there," he replied. "You belong where I do." She took his hand. Her grip was firm. He didn't resist. The platform door opened with a quiet hiss. The landing pod was empty, its interior glowing faint blue. Sira stepped inside first, pulling Kaleb after her. As soon as they entered, the door sealed. The pod rose quickly, cutting through the night sky. Through the window, Kaleb saw the burning city below. Streets cracked, towers crumbled. But in that moment, none of it touched them. They were above it. The interior of the main ship greeted them with quiet warmth. Alien symbols glowed along the walls. Soft lights followed their steps. Sira walked forward confidently. Kaleb followed without question. A group of tall figures stood waiting. Some wore robes, others bore armor. One stepped forward and knelt. "We failed you once, we will not again," Sira nodded. "Then honor my choice." She turned slightly and placed a hand on Kaleb's shoulder. "This is my bond. This is my future." The kneeling figure rose. "Then he will be treated as royal." Kaleb said nothing. He didn't feel royal. He still felt like a man who once lived alone in a dusty apartment. But now he stood on a ship built for rulers, beside someone who had chosen him over tradition. The ship shifted course. "Where are we going?" Kaleb asked softly. Sira looked ahead. "To gather the rest. There are more, scattered, hiding, afraid, but if they see me, they will rise again. And Earth?" She looked down at the blue marble below. "Earth sent no fleets. Earth closed its eyes, but you opened yours. And now they will follow you." Kaleb gave a small nod. "I didn't expect any of this." "Nor did I," she said, "but fate does not ask permission." They reached the command deck. Through the massive front screen, stars stretched endlessly. Paths lit up ahead. The ship was preparing for jump. The crew stood at their stations, silent but ready. Sira turned to Kaleb one last time before the jump. "You once asked why I stayed, do you remember?" "Yes," he whispered. "I stayed because you never looked at me like a thing." She reached up and touched his cheek gently. "You looked at me like a person, so I became one again." Kaleb closed his hand over hers. "Then let's give that chance to the others too." She smiled. Together. The ship vanished into the stars. Asterisk glided through uncharted space, moving like a silent spear between stars. Inside, Kaleb stood on the viewing deck, watching the stars pass by faster than his thoughts could follow. The galaxy no longer seemed endless. It felt like a road now. A road they were ready to walk together. Sira entered behind him, her bare feet silent against the smooth floor. She had changed into royal armor, black and silver, lined with glowing threads of gold. She looked nothing like the quiet girl he had first opened from a crate. She looked like a queen reborn. He turned and smiled at her. "You're different." "I am myself again," she replied. She stepped closer and held out a smooth stone. "This holds the records of our people, maps, names, memories lost in fire. I want you to carry it." Kaleb took the stone carefully. It hummed in his palm. "Why me?" "Because the past will listen to you. You are not Kithari. That makes your voice powerful." She looked through the window beside him. A distant planet grew larger in the distance. That world is called Varus. Once a hidden colony, it survived the fall. The ship adjusted course, diving toward the green and blue surface. Kaleb watched its twin moons rise in the corner of the screen. "Will they accept us?" "They will accept me. Because I carry you." The ship touched down on a mountaintop platform surrounded by stone towers and glowing trees. The moment Sira stepped out, voices echoed, horns blew. Lights flickered across the sky. Dozens of Kithari stepped forward from behind stone gates. Some were young, some were warriors. Some carried infants wrapped in silver cloth. But all of them stopped and dropped to one knee when they saw her. Sira raised her arm. "I am not your past. I am your future." The crowd rose slowly, hope spreading through the silence like fire catching wind. She turned to Kaleb and took his hand openly. "This is Kaleb of Earth, chosen by me, protector of the last signal, speaker of truth." They didn't question it. They didn't protest. These were people who had lost too much to deny something real. For the next few days, Kaleb lived among them. He walked their high bridges, listened to their songs, learned their food. Children followed him and touched his hands, curious about the softness of human skin. He helped plant new roots in the high gardens. He repaired lights in the broken towers. He stood beside Sira as she rebuilt what had been stolen from them. One night, under violet skies, he stood with her alone by the cliff's edge. Below them, the forests shimmered. Above them, the stars blinked without sound. "You could leave," she said softly. "Return to Earth. No one would stop you." He didn't answer right away. He watched a falling star streak across the atmosphere. Then he turned. "I never came here to escape Earth. I came to find what I lost." "And did you?" He nodded. "I found a reason to stay." She stepped close and rested her forehead against his. "There will be more battles," she warned. "More enemies." "I don't need peace," he replied. "I need you." The next morning, a ceremony was held in the main courtyard. Stones carved with names were lifted. Children were named. New guardians were sworn in. And beneath the open sun, Sira turned to Kaleb with a ceremonial thread in her hands. He wore the simple clothes of a builder, but his eyes held steady. She wrapped the golden thread around his wrist and tied it tightly. "By our bond, you are no longer visitor. You are root, you are fire." Kaleb spoke the words she taught him. "By your name, I am no longer alone." The people cheered. Some wept. Old voices called down blessings. Drones recorded it and sent the message into the stars. Later that night, alone once more on the tower roof, Sira rested her head on his shoulder. "We are no longer hunted." Kaleb looked at the sky. "We are building something worth protecting." She looked up at him. "And if the galaxy comes again?" He smiled gently. "Then it learns what happens when a man defends his wife."